Okay. Hello, all. Welcome to Athletics LLC. I am Big League Chew.
What up?
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Hello, gentlemen.
All right. Well, this evening we have a couple topics or a few topics that we're going to go over, and we're just going to highlight them and see what happens. So first, let's start off. How is the Olympics date going to change the team?
Well, we should start with our elder statesman.
Okay, so kind of clarify that question for me, so I don't get busted upside the head with this one. What do you exactly mean by that?
In essence, the question is the trials were set to happen in a few weeks or a few months, I should say. And how is pushing this a year later going to ultimately affect who we would have projected to be on said team? Is it an advantage for the pros? Is it an advantage for the collegiates? Does that flux matter? How do we see it?
Well, I personally don't think it's an advantage or a disadvantage to anybody right now because everybody's kind of shut down. And I think what's going to happen is, from my point of view anyway, those who can coach will figure it out and have their people ready. There was a lot of talk like were in September and October, and wow, that was wrong. Coaching is coaching. And so I think that the people that are smart about it will find a way to get their kids ready, or get their athletes ready when they're supposed to be ready. And I know that's my plan anyway.
Well,
There you go.
Don't you think that plays into the advantage hugely towards pros, especially pros that are in good groups or have established coaches who've already kind of been through, I'll say, some of the post-collegiate turmoil? Because I think a lot of the collegiate coaches are going to be running around like ducks in new water.
Well, I agree with you, but then I disagree with you as well, because there's a lot of good collegiate coaches out there. And, we have to figure things out on the run all the time. And so I think the big thing, when we can get back to work, once we have a baseline, once we have a timeline of what we can and can't do, I think we'll be fine. But until that time, we're all the same. I think, is there some advantage to being a professional right now? Yeah, because some of those groups can still get to places, they can get together, they can lift, and they can do stuff like that. Yeah. But other than that, I'm always going to fight for the college coaches. You know that. So
I would agree with that for the most part. I think if the question boils down to which coaches, professional coaches or collegiate coaches, are going to be more adaptable to the new changes, I think the collegiate coaches know how to do that adaptation a little bit, easier, because we have to deal with random change all the time. Personally, as far as the professionals go, I think everybody is in a very unique situation. And, there are some professional crews that don't have a place to train right now. I think for the most part, I think the biggest change that's going to affect who's on the team and who isn't on the team is twofold. I think it's one, the new distinction that they've made about the qualifying window, with them shutting down the qualifying window basically from right now until January. I think that's going to help or hurt some people in particular. And then the second part of it is, when do we set the actual new date of the trials, which, as I understand it, has not been set yet. I think the closer the trials are to the end of the NCAA championships, helps the collegiates. I think the further away it gets, the more of a mess it becomes for the collegiates, because, we all got to get up for NCs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, we just got to use common sense there. You just look at what the USA Track and Field's done in the past. I don't know how. I don't agree that it should be like the Friday after the NCAA championships, but I also don't think that we need to push it 2 or 3 or 4 weeks behind it either, because then you're getting too close to the games themselves. And I don't have the exact start date of the track and field portion of the games in front of me right now, but I think it's like late July. So as long as we're 4 or 5 weeks out from that, we should be fine. But I totally agree with you that track and field coaches are very adaptable, especially collegiate coaches. We have to do things on the fly all the time. And so the better, quote unquote, professional coaches, they're good at it as well. And if you look at it, for the last 3-4 Olympiads, most of the athletes that make the team are coming from the same camps, and there's a reason why those coaches are successful, because they know what they're doing. So I expect, obviously I'm the Olympic coach next year, so I hope we get it right. Hope we get it right.
One of the things that that has come to mind, I guess, since we've been started talking about this is, I think it's a huge advantage to the collegians in this regard. Like, they're all 1 year older.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I think we would all trade our juniors for our sophomores and our seniors for our juniors by ways of physical maturity, not necessarily mentally. But
right. They're
all 1 year physically older. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a huge advantage to the collegians, because next year is going to, in all intents and purposes, be a normal year for them. Like, once they go back to school, it's business as usual. But now you got a whole series of pros who, for the most part, haven't had any races, haven't had any competitions for not the usual, like they come up behind and they start to ramp up in April. You're talking about they haven't had races in a year and a half, right? If you're one of those people that was done at U.S. championships last year, so that was July, right? That means by the time you race again, we'll say you run an indoor season, that's July of 2019 all the way to January of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That's like coming off an injury.
Yeah. Well, another thing is this too. Like I said, most of these people come out of the same camps, and the people in those camps are pretty smart. And if I'm a guy in that situation, we're going to do some time trials. We're going to figure out where our fitness levels are and figure out where to get it done. I think something that's a kind of a caveat to this is, what does it do for the old heads, as we probably want to call them? The Justin Gatlins, the Karan Clements, I think exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a guy like Gatlin, that probably won't hurt him at all. I mean, he's a machine, and rest usually is what's best for him. So, so like, what does it do for people like that? That's a question I think that has to be asked as well.
And I think depending on the event groups, I think the event groups specifically, if there's anything that's going to change, it's going to change the event groups. Like, for instance, if you look at the typical landscape of the men's 100, I think we would all agree that there's maybe 5 to 6 guys tops that are legitimately in the mix to make that team. But women, it's wide open. And you give for instance, the young lady from LSU who was going to be a rookie. Now she gets that extra time. That can only help her.
Exactly.
All the time off can only help a situation like that. Coaching changes and all those other things. So I agree with you. I think the smarter coaches at the professional level in the camps definitely find a way to figure it out. But the age thing, I think, is a big deal. And for the collegians who were going to be seniors, and maybe they're technically still seniors now, I think that extra year does help.
Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree with you on that one.
Well, with that said, then, knowing that they're going to age and they're going to mature, and, how does that open that door even wider? What do we think about, is the world record going to go down in the 4x4, knowing that crop now is increased? So what do you guys think about that?
I already know I'm going to be in the minority in this. Listen, I'm good with it.
Well, since you're the minority, please do us a favor and go first, sir.
Enlighten
us with your.
I believe that this current group of young, talented sprinters can absolutely reset that men's 4x4 record. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that. Do the coaches put them in the right grouping? Is the order correct? Do they care enough to chase it? All of these things.
We're not going to allow you to tap dance around this issue, sir.
Listen,
I want you to I want you to be Clyde and go for it. That's what I want.
I'm telling you, I believe that Craig Curley, Rye Benjamin, Mr. Holloway, and Michael Norman can absolutely break that record. Now, do I ever get to see those 4 human beings running together? I don't know. And am I saying that those 4 people in a head-up race with the former world record team would win? I'm not even saying that. But the time is the time, and I believe those 4 people can run 254. I think they can do that.
Okay, so I'm going to say this to you. I believe they can. But the mentality of this group is not the mentality of that group before. Okay?
Not even close.
I knew that was coming.
Right.
So the problem you have here is, okay, I'm gonna just take my guy, Holloway. Like, Grant's not running 43.7 unless he's chasing somebody. It's just not happening. Okay, and that was the difference between this group and that former group. The former group was trying to destroy people. Would this group destroy people, or would they just do enough to win, which has kind of been what the groups have been doing lately? You know, we don't have those killers. I personally think that Andrew Valman may be the best leadoff man in the history of the sport. That's just my opinion. If I've got to choose a leadoff guy, I'm not worried about the times. I want Andrew Valman. No doubt. Okay? And then you get a guy like Quincy, and Quincy going to go drop 43, not because he had to, but because he could. So the question is, will Rye, will Grant, will Mike go out and run 43 low, or like if Mike Johnson did 42 high, when you have a 50-meter lead? That's the question. And so I don't know that the mentalities are, I think the kind of the, I don't want to say this, like the whole deal with the professional side of it is different because they don't have a reason to go out and attack records like that anymore because they get paid pretty well. You know, those guys, the old guys, they chase records and stuff because they're trying to make a better living.
I also think that, because I agree with every single thing you just said, Mr. Lucius, everything. But I also think, to add to that, one of the issues you have with the foursome that my man has put together is there's only 2 quarter-milers in it. So that means somebody's going to have the stones to run a 4x4 that only has 2 people from the Open 400 team on it. I'm not saying that you and I both know how the politics get to go. And at the
look, just look at the women's 4x4 last year. They had 2 400 hurdlers on that one. Yeah.
Well,
that particular group would be a 110 hurdler, a 400 hurdler.
I don't make any decisions. You know, I can whisper in people's ears, but if Rod Benjamin is 46 seconds in the 400 hurdles, which we all expect him to be, I mean, I think my man Clyde and I wrote only 2 people a couple of years ago that agreed he was trying to run 46 seconds. Everybody told us we were crazy, and then a month later you're in 47 flat, but that's a different conversation.
Right.
And if Grant Holloway has shown the fitness that he can split 43, or has he gone to a meet and run 44 in an open quarter, how do you keep him off? You know. But the other thing too is, like, I think what the United States got to make a decision. You know, with the 400 meter group. You know, the rest of the world has caught up to us and in a lot of ways surpassed us. So we got to get back to being the dominant force in the 400. You know, because that's what Andrew and Quincy and Butch and Mike, you know, Steve Lewis, Danny Everett. I can do that all day. You know, and you had guys like Mark Everett, who's an 800 meter guy who grab a stick and split 44 low back in the day. You know, we don't have that anymore because again, the hunger, the going to the line is saying we're going to pound people, just not the same as it was before. Not the same.
And I'm with you on that. I don't disagree with that at all. I think on the men's side, I think if there's anybody that's currently out there running that has those type of mentalities, it's oddly the 2 people that aren't straight up 400 meter runners. Holloway definitely has that mentality, and Rye Benjamin is John Wick as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not worried about the 2 that don't run the 4, if anything. And I mean,
put a third one in. Need to put Noah Lyles in there.
Well, now does he want to do it? I don't know, but I'm with you on that. Now, if we're talking about 4x4 straight up, I'll throw in another caveat. We asked about the men. I'll take the top 4 women that run 400 hurdles head to head over the 4 top women to run the open quarter.
In
2021, I would be on your side.
So who are the top 4 women in the 400?
Well, whoever that may be.
Okay, hold on a second. So now we know that this year, who was the top American? Waddling. 50 point.
Yeah.
And there was.
You figure Okolo's in there somewhere. You figure out.
Who was the second girl this year?
Who did get second?
Phyllis Francis.
Phyllis, there you go.
So
Waddling, Phyllis, Allison, and Okolo.
I was waiting to see if you were going to say Allison. If you didn't say Allison, we were going to have a problem.
No. Obviously.
She's going to be ready.
Allison in there. You take those 4, and you give me on the other side, you give me Delilah, Sid, Spencer, and Shamir Little. I'll take the 400 hurdlers.
All of my money goes on that group.
Well, I don't know. I don't see. First of all, I'm not betting against Allison. That's just not smart. It's just not.
I hear you.
And the other thing too is, I'm not positive that Okolo's the fourth girl, but we'll wait and see how it shakes out at the trials. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to know that, but I'm just saying
Right.
the 400 hurdle crew.
Oh, look, I'm not telling you they can't run with them, but the biggest problem the 400 hurdle crew has is you're not. If Allison is Allison, that could be 47-9. And there's some high school kids that don't want to deal with Allison when Allison is Allison.
But do we not think Sid could split that same 47?
I was just gonna say I would pay money for Allison and Sid with a stick in their hands.
Okay, well I pay money too. Okay, I would tell you like this.
You're not 08.
I would tell you right now. If Allison is 47-9, Allison, you can have whoever you want. take the East German drug girls. I'm taking Allison. You know, I want the old school girl. You know, you know, we've had this discussion. I think Sydney McLaughlin is phenomenal. I think that what she's done in her short time has been, you know, she's going a great curve to do unbelievable things. But she's a long way from Allison Felix right now, in my opinion. So we'll see.
Can the women challenge the 4x4 record?
Oh wow, I don't know, man. Like, it's the same deal. It's like, see, you go back. You ever go back and watch that race?
Yeah.
You know, like and Valerie, like we're out of the race, and Valerie Briscoe just says, I'm going to give FloJo a chance, so you get a 48-1 anchor out of FloJo, so we can get that. But who else is going to run 48? Who else has?
Well, the big difference for me, the big difference on the women's side is that was actually a race. The men did it by themselves.
Exactly.
The women
don't
have anybody to push them to that level at all.
And I think that's your problem with your four guys. Somebody's going to have to make them run that fast, and I don't think there's another country that can.
2.5 of those legs are going to be run absolutely solo dolo.
Yeah, 2 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably 2 3/4.
Yeah, because if you think about it, after Quincy got to the break, it was done. It was done.
That's right.
And so usually what's going to happen when the U.S. women are just better than everybody else, we run 3:18. That's what we did, and we ran 3:15. That because the Russians ran 3:15. Or the unified, whatever they're calling themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So kind of identifying that the difference is just the athletes themselves within their professionalisms and the mentalities are different and whatever. Like, gleam on what's wrong with professional athletics now. Like,
there's so much wrong with professional athletics.
Professional athletics as far as track and field goes, or professional as a whole?
No, yeah, track and field. Athletics as in
athletics, as track and field.
Okay. Well, I think this is going to kind of lead to something we're going to talk about later, but I think that, and I'll just go and open the door. It's like we have to truly professionalize track and field. We all know tons of people who say, I'm a professional track and field athlete who don't have a contract. So it's hard to be a professional at something that you don't get paid for. Gear is not a contract. You can't pay bills with gear. And most of them don't even have that. So I think the problem is that, if I recall correctly, back in the day, there was a lot of, smaller contracts and there were more people actually getting paid, and there was a better bonus structure and they had to go out and work for those things. The problem you have now is that there's people have these big contracts and there's not the money for the smaller people to work hard every day and develop because they can't pay their bills. You see people walk out of the sport every day because they can't afford to be in it anymore.
Go ahead, Chuck.
From a different angle, and I agree with all of that, and I definitely have thoughts on that for later on. For me, when I hear the question, what's wrong with professional track and field, my brain immediately goes to the administrative side of things. And for me, the biggest problem with professional track and field as it currently states is we keep trying to cater to an audience that doesn't give a damn about us. My thing is we would do a lot better as a sport if we cater to the people that care and stop trying to bring in the people that are loose, casual, every 4-year fans. I think you play to your base. And I don't understand the mentality of going against the diehard fans that want to see what they want to see. I think that everything should be catered. If you're going to cater to fans, cater to the people that are always going to be fans, that will continue to be fans.
Okay, so my question is, then, who is that base, and how do you cater to them?
But I think that kind of speaks to the initial question. The question was, what's wrong with quote unquote basically professional track and field? Well, I think part of it is the general tenets that are necessary for it to be professional don't exist. There is no league. There is no true commissioner. There are people in our sport that run track meets, host athletes, and like they have 3 separate hats in the same track meet. Like that can't happen. Like there's nobody who runs a WTA tennis association who also is the coach of 3 tennis players, who also is calling the sponsors for everybody else to bring. Like that's the problem. Like,
right.
Like the athletes don't have any unity. So there is no professional base. There is no tier system. And because of that, of course, the athletes that make the dollars are definitely not looking out for the ones that don't, because why should they? Because there is, like, you can't be loyal to a game that has no loyalty. And then you add to it, track is probably the most collusionary thing on the planet, like outside of the old school phone company things. Like there's so much collusion going on in track. There's so many meet promoters who are also getting paid by Adidas or Nike or whatever shoe company, who also are like they're beholden to a certain coach group, a certain massage therapy group, and all these things. And so we almost never have like the best 8 out there, if that makes sense. We have the 8 that have been assembled for entertainment for us that day. But other than the Diamond Leagues, and even those, think about it. Like you can't tell somebody if you do this, you're gonna get a lane in the Diamond League. There is no this. Because one of the first things you got to do is you got to do this to get noticed by this agent, who then has to pluck you from the group, and then that agent has been given 3 lanes or 4 lanes or whatever it is. And so, like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I feel like what's wrong with professional track is, for one, there is no professionalism. For 2, there ain't no real money in the sport. And I say that, like, not saying that there aren't people who make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 or $1 million, but back in the day, as they say, it still wasn't any more professional, but it made more sense because there was less people who made this crazy amount of money, and there were way more track meets and way more people who could just earn their living. Like, you could have no contract, just be on a bonus deal, but make 6 figures because there were enough track meets for you to do it. Now, there aren't enough track meets for you to make a living. Unless you are a made man, so to speak, and I don't mean that by ways of gender. I mean, unless you're famous, unless somebody knows you, right, or you're in a famous group, like, you got no shot of making a living. You got no shot.
All of that is obviously true. What I've been saying to people, athletes, coaches for years is, at the end of the day, there's a lot of blame to go around for the non-professionalism of professional track and field. But at the end of the day, I point the finger at the athletes. And why I say that is very, very simple. They have not learned the lesson of history. And the lesson of history in professional sports is there is no professional sport unless you are collectively bargaining for your rights and your wages. Period. End of story. Non-negotiable. And it's in the power structure's best interest to keep everybody separated. So since the athletes are not working together to collectively bargain for their rights and their checks, they have no shot. My thing is, even if you just look at it from an American standpoint, if the American athletes got together and said, you know what, we're going to roll together no matter what, the NFL structure, the MLB structure is not set for the people who are making $30 million a year or getting $300 million contracts. It's set for the people who only are going to get $300K that you never see. And if the people at the top don't care about the people at the bottom, then there's no unity to build any kind of collective bargaining power. They have to do it that way. And until somebody wakes up, until the elites wake up, and this generation's elites are who they are. The former generation didn't do it. The generation before that didn't do it. Nobody did it. So until they figure this game out, they're going to keep playing the way they're playing.
And I think a huge issue here is that, like, people are rewarded for running one race fast, or winning one championship. It's kind of a running joke at the NCAA championship. Okay, who's going to do something stupid here, and this is going to be their last meet. There's not a person on the planet that didn't understand that Shaqiri was gone. As soon as the clock stopped at 10:75, somebody said, "You know where to go get a loan from next year, don't you?"
That's right.
And that's the problem. So, look, I'm happy for her. I'm happy for all the other people that go out there and they get the big contracts. But in the big scheme of things, is that what's good for our sport? Because you give some of these young kids some of these big contracts. I'm not going to call names. I'm not trying to call people out. But you give them these big contracts, and they just disappear. It's into the night. You never see them again. Because when you give a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid $500,000 or more and no cuts for a long period of time, what is their motivation to go out and work harder? I'm getting paid no matter what I do. So I'm going to go home and watch cartoons and hang out with my family. And that's what they do.
What has made every great career great in track and field is the fact that there were yearly cuts, and every year was a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were forced, if you weren't intrinsically motivated, you were forced to be motivated every year that you had to earn your money, right? The rest of the sports, the rest of the professional sports, they all got it right. Even in baseball, when you get a ton of money as a signing bonus, they send you to the minors, right? They put you on a boat. Like, you don't sign this gigantic contract and then go play, in front of millions of people. You sign this you get this gigantic money, like, here's the money to hold you over. Now I'm going to send you down here to Florida or Arizona. You're going to be riding around on a bus and get treated like dirt like everybody else. Right? So there's a thing that you have to earn. Right? This is a thing you have to earn. And at the end of the day, like, all the rappers always talk about it, right? You can't rap about being broke if you ain't broke no more.
Right.
That's true.
And I think that's the huge issue. It always has been one for me is, there's a bunch of kids out there that get this big money and either they do nothing for a few years, and some of them just never make it. They blow their money and you never see or hear from them again.
As my older statesman on the panel here, both of y'all, I would like, because I've given this example to people in the past. I think it's utterly ridiculous, back to my point about collectively bargaining, right? I think it's utterly ridiculous that the athletes get no cut of the TV money from the Olympics. Everybody else eats. The athletes don't get a cut of that. And that's billions and billions of dollars. So fast forward, COVID's done. It's 2021. We're all in Eugene for the Olympic trials. It's Sunday night on the second weekend. The team is set. And all of them walk into the Hilton together and be like, hey, check this out. We're not going unless we get a cut. Mm-hmm. No one's going.
Right.
How long does it take for them to change that dynamic?
Well, they're going to have to not show up for real.
Right.
That's what's going to have to happen because Track and Field News did an article years ago that said, what if a track meet, they had a track meet, nobody showed up, and until that happens, because there can't be a track meet without the athletes. It just can't. But it just can't be the USA team. It's got to be all the teams. It's got to be all the major stars, and nobody can flinch, and nobody can say, okay, hey, we're going to back off because, my baby needs diapers and all that rhetoric that's going to happen. At the end of the day, it's got to be, we're tired of getting, let's just call it what it is. They're getting raped, They're making billions of dollars off the blood, sweat, and tears of the athletes and the coaches too, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're in a non-bargain for group, that's exactly what is always going to happen to you. You're going to get exploited. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I just went through this with Major League Baseball. They're shrinking the draft from 40 rounds down to as few as 5 and as much as 10 this year. Well, the group that gets completely destroyed in that scenario are all of the amateurs because there's nobody bargaining for them in the room, right? The professionals are going to get a year of service, so the veterans. All the professionals are taken care of, so the minor leaguers are still getting taken care of. But all the people who are not professional baseball players yet, the ones in college and the ones in high school, they're all getting crushed by this. All of their plans have been rearranged because there's nobody in the room bargaining for them. And if you're in a non-bargain for group, that's the position you're always going to be in.
Right.
Well, let's segue that. Keep the notion going. You know, why will the lack of the union fail? You know, what's wrong with the Athletics Association? Like, why is this not progressing? I mean, we've already spotlighted it, but how do we grow it even more?
I think Chris just touched on that when he said this, because the group hasn't unionized. They haven't come together as one. They go to each other as individuals. So if you're back in the day, if I just, just throw him out there, Usain Bolt, and Bolt goes and says, I'm not coming to this meet unless I get this amount of money unless my group gets to come. So then they let their whole group come. But until the athletes as a whole say, we're not coming to meets, we're not going to championships until we start getting a cut of the big money that's out there, then it's not going to stop. But it's got to be everybody. It just can't be a selective few.
I'll give an example to that on the union thing. Like Christian Taylor stepped out and has built this "We Are the Sport" campaign, right? Mm-hmm. And on the surface, I think it's a beautiful idea, and they got some legendary names working together behind the scenes, trying to, work with Seb Coe and negotiate for things and all that. But as an outsider, from where I sit, my question is, what are you actually negotiating for? Are you negotiating to get more Diamond League races back in? Are you negotiating because the triple jump was cut and we want the triple jump back and we all want that? But see, that's, to me, you're begging for scraps from the table that you should be standing on top of in the first place. Like the attitude that it feels like they did the survey. They put the survey out with the athletes, the athletes said in the survey that we think the Olympics should get moved. Well, the Olympics were going to get moved anyway. That was just a money game that they were delaying. Like, the survey was cool and all, but that was common sense. My thing is, what are you using this unity moment that you have? What are you really using it for? You don't need a Martin Luther King approach to this. You need Malcolm X. You need to be willing to go in there and blow this thing up to get what you are due, to get what you're owed. Like, so I'm thinking when we have these little hot spots of the unions, like, what are you really asking for? Is the thing that you're negotiating for, are you coming for the top, or are you coming for the little that they're willing to let you have?
If you think pennies, you get pennies. You think dollars, you get dollars. So we asking for pennies, or we asking for dollars. I mean, I know CT pretty well. I mean, I could ask him the question. I haven't had the conversation with him. I would imagine, knowing him as I do, that he would be trying to go at least for the middle ground of that. But I can't speak for him, so I really don't know. But I agree with you that it's not about just getting them to stop eliminating Diamond League events. And obviously, Christian's got to, he's about to be married. He's going to have a family, so he needs to be able to eat. So maybe his main concern right now is the triple jump, because that's what his event is. But I also think that there has to be a group that's more concerned with the sport as a whole and not just individual factions of the sport. Because if you don't take care of the sport as a whole, we're going to wake up 20 years from now, and it's going to be the same thing, because it was the same thing 20 years ago. Nothing's changed. Just the amount of contracts, the people that are helping the athletes at the big top are the shoe companies,
Right.
But
I mean,
the other athletes don't get anything out of it.
The wheel has been built and then rebuilt twice in this sport. Santa Monica proved what collusionary actions will do for athletes and their groups, and then they went away. And then HSI reproved what collusionary actions will do for the individuals in the group, the coaches in the group, and the lower level people in the group. And nobody else, it's like, if you're trying to figure out how to start a union in track and field, just look at either one of those two. The best people in the group that need to be collectively bargained for have to agree everybody gets paid.
Yeah.
Like, look, they can't we're not gonna get paid evenly, but everybody had that. Like, the standard of living in the sport of track and field is zero right now, right? Like there is no bottom. Right. And so there needs to be a bottom. Like, if you make a U.S. championship final, there should be an amount of money that then makes you as a salary. It's minor leagues. Look, my son's a minor leaguer. His actual salary is $1,100 a month. Yeah. Can't live on that, but that's the point.
But that's what'll keep him hungry if he really wants to be a great baseball player. And the problem you have is you got people that have never been to the USA Championships to make $500,000 a year. That's the problem.
Exactly.
You know, because
that's what got to stop.
We are giving high schoolers $250,000 a year. They've never set foot on a college campus. They've never been. Some have never been to the World Juniors, let alone the Worlds. But they make $250,000 a year. And so, what's that young man or young lady's motivation to do? Like, everybody's not Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles is the exception. He's not the rule. He's definitely the exception. You know.
I mean, look, if you outside of Noah and Allison Felix, I don't think you can name me a high school contract that's panned out.
No.
Not a one.
Outside of those two, like of an American, I don't think there's not been one.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, like, that's a losing proposition.
Yeah. But we continue to do it because the shoe companies, because there's no, like, you know, in the other sports, there's the rookie cap and there's this cap. There's no cap. You know, it's based on, you know, it becomes ego driven. Okay, well, I don't want this company to get them. You know, it's kind of like, look, we do it in recruiting for colleges. You know, Chuck, you've seen it. You guys have all done it. You know, somebody wants to, I pick up the phone and call somebody. Well, if he's talking to him, I better offer him more money than he is. Who said I was offering you money at all? You know? so and that's the game people play. And it's the same with the shoe companies. It's like, well, I don't want to lose him or her to that company. They got enough already. You know, so and it just, in my opinion, they're wasting a lot of dollars. But
and I think all of us have worked with international athletes, you know, in the past or currently. I was amazed to learn how the international models, the different countries, do a significantly better job of taking care of their talent than we do here. And the only thing that I can wrap my head around is that the attitude must be, well, there's so many talented Americans, we don't need to do much for these people because there'll be somebody else fast that ends up making the team anyway.
That's absolutely the problem. It's American arrogance. Continue.
Right.
No, but it blows my mind because we do have the best collection of talent, but there's so many talented athletes right now that are literally out of the sport because they weren't supported by their NGB. And we're the biggest NGB. We got the most money and we got the most resources, but we do such a terrible job of taking care of these kids. And I mean, there's been improvements in the past couple of years, but that little bonus thing that they got going on for the newly minted pros, that you can't eat off that. And they need to, like, that the model needs to change.
Look, the thing is, everybody thinks it takes all this money to do it. Look, I'll give you the best example I can. When we had the Visa Decathlon program, everybody thought we were eating caviar. Listen, the top person at the U.S. Championships got $880 a month from Visa. And it went $770, $660, $540, $550, blah, 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 right? But there was something. There was a structure. There was a reason to try to get better and do things. And what did that produce? In 1996, there were 25 active 8,000-point decathletes in the United States. Right? That's how you build a base. Right? And we all talk about, like, iron sharpens iron. Like, the better the bottom is, it forces the top to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right now, our top is great because we have 360 million people. We've done a tremendous amount of race mixing, so we have some statistical anomalies. Like, we literally are just good because we're talented. Am I making sense though?
Chris Huffins are at your absolute best on that one, young man.
No, Lord.
Oh my gosh.
But what is race mixing have to do with it?
That's the no. Let's get into that. That's the reason that the drug culture pervaded initially in Europe, because they only had like 2 trees. So that's the genetic gene pool you were coming from. The more gene pools that get mixed, the more statistical anomalies come out. That's how you get the great ones.
So you're saying this was planned here in the United States as well?
No. It's not planned at all, but I'm saying, like, the resultant.
I know.
What he's saying.
The result is that we have this ridiculous talent base that we don't take care of because the tree continues to bear fruit.
Clyde, you need to
what
get
he's
the-
saying, I'm not jumping
Where's the
on
mute button? I gotta mute him.
I'm not jumping on his page with his analogy at all.
Okay.
But the net of his analogy is that mixed babies rule the world, and I got no problem with that particular point of view.
Yeah, I didn't think you would have a problem with that at all, sir. At all.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so as we digress, let's turn that page a little bit more.
I didn't do that. You did that.
So let's professionalize this. What steps do we need to take to actually professionalize track and field? We've alluded to what it is, but what are the actual steps?
Step number one is the athletes have to have the stones to actually unionize and
they
be willing to walk away.
Yep.
If you're not willing to walk, there's no one. They'll look at you. They'll entertain your conversations. They'll FaceTime you. They'll invite you to dinner. But at the end of the day, they know you're going to show up and run. So what difference does it make?
But what is it that has to be said to those athletes? Because right now, I feel like everyone says exactly what you're saying, but not one has the balls to do it. Two, is it the mentality? Is it just the generation?
Okay, so I'm gonna put it like this. I don't know where you grew up, but I'm gonna assume you didn't grow up where we grew up, and so it's kind of like there's about to be a brawl after school. So what you do is you go around the school and you get your boys that are going to show up and go to war with you. Right. Mm-hmm. So the problem is you can't get enough people to show up and go to war with you in this situation. That's the whole issue. So you're going to go stand up in front of these people, and we'll just use Christian as an example. Christian can't go and stand up and say, I'm not going to show up.
Right. Because
there's 3 other guys that aren't him, but they're close, that are going to show up, and they're glad he didn't show up because now they can get his money. And that's the problem. Until everybody says, not just that group, every event group says, we're not coming because they're the show. If you take them away, there is no show. And that's the issue. And I don't know if anybody's going to do that with them.
I think to add to that, I think the other piece that also has to happen, and I think I'm sure in many of our previous Lucius and Lamar conversations, we've come to this conclusion, is that people have to stop thinking autobiographically. All of the elites have to agree to not show up, but they also have to bargain for the sport, not their event and not themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Allison Felix has to, because she has power, she has to bargain for the high school, junior, middle distance girl. You know what I mean? You're bargaining for the future of the sport, not for the future of your event or for your future. Right. Because it's going to help everybody. And again, that track and field is so daggum top heavy, it's not even funny. It's not even funny.
The cold part about it is if the current elites, if the current big names, if the current stars would stand together and bring everybody along with them, it really wouldn't be that difficult to set a decent ceiling, a decent floor for the sport. And who knows what the metrics are? Whatever. You could go. The World Athletics loves their new world ranking system, right? Great. Collectively bargain and set the floor that through that system, if you're a top 40 athlete in the sport, you're going to make a guarantee of $50,000 a year. Period. And if you can earn your way into that, well, then that's different. Then people are making a living, and there's a hierarchy, and you can still get your bonuses, and you can still go out and make your $2 million, $3 million if you're good enough. But there has to be some kind of floor. The floor can't be I sleep on somebody's couch. That can't be.
The floor is literally the floor right now.
Right. And that's the problem. And see, and the bigger issue for me is, again, that we're losing what I call the middle. That person that's the 10-0 guy, that in the right system and given the right time, he becomes 9-9 low and 9-8. But you lose those guys because they can't stay in the sport. And there's a bunch of them out there. The 10-1 guy who can't, he's got no shot. Right. We know those kids. I get accused of being elitist, but 10-09 isn't fast anymore. People just get like, you run 10-0, okay, you can't even make the NCAA final sometimes running 10-09. Right?
That's right.
So. Got it. Well, so good allusion into the next. Then how is COVID-19 going to affect the NCAA structure, which ultimately will trickle into professional athletics? So how does that happen? Like, what's going to happen? What could happen?
Well, I think that, the first thing is, I think, we all know and we're aware that the seniors have been given another year. And so that's not a huge deal. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying it's not fair, it's not this, but majority of those athletes are going to be back for a fifth year anyway. So the funding is there for them to be in school. It's just got a different name to it. That's all it is. It comes from the same fund. I think the bigger issue is the junior class, because now they all have an outdoor season for a fifth year. And if everybody said today, we're all bringing the junior class back, then nobody has money to recruit the junior class of high schoolers right now. So that's this big decision that's got to be made. Who are you not bringing back from your junior class so you can recruit the current junior class of high schoolers? That's the question right there.
That is a great point. And personally, for me, as I've been having my COVID-19 conversations with my colleagues and my friends and the people I discuss this with, I'm being accused of being the doomsday guy, right? I don't think.
For the record, I want to say this is not the first time you've been accused of that.
Sure. No problem. I totally accept this. I totally accept it.
Maybe that's a mixed baby issue. I don't know.
It might be. I like science. I listen to the scientists on TV when they talk. Short of an actual vaccine, I'm sorry, I don't feel there's any possibility that fall in the NCAA is business as usual. And if fall,
and I'm gonna say this, I don't think NCAA is going to be business as usual for a long time.
Right.
Okay, there's a difference between business as usual and no business at all. There will be some business done this fall.
Absolutely.
At some level. And here's the thing, okay? Trust me when I tell you this. As soon as people say, or as soon as whoever the powers that be say, you can play football games and people can come, they're going.
Sure.
They're going. Look at the knuckleheads of what they're doing now. They're jamming themselves in the clubs. I saw something the other day. They broke up this big football game somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The people don't care. So the question is not going to be whether the NCAA opens up again. Is it when it opens up? People are going to show up. Now, will it be scaled back at some point? It's got to be. I think the world as we know it is going to change, because even until there's a vaccine, the way we shop, the way we do a lot of things is going to change. But I think when it comes to the NCAA system, I think personally it's going to get scaled back to some ways. I do think we'll play football this fall. I don't think we'll be playing football in March and April. That's just not happening. It's not football season. You don't play football in March. It's no.
Well,
no.
we all. My thing is all tied to the money, right? So, the NCAA basketball tournament didn't happen. Right. That's billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. That affected. Yeah. That's why spring sports got canceled. The money. And so my thing is, as we look forward to the track season, how much of our track season is going to be scaled down because people who need to fund it can't fund it at the level that they once wanted to fund it? How many programs have to go away because the athletic department can't afford the bills, that comes with track and field? And ultimately, for me, I'm like, all the administrators in all the sports, if you're going to restructure things, this is the time to do it. So all the people that have been pushing for certain dynamics within NCAA track and field to change, I think they probably would be sitting around trying to capitalize on this moment. Like, hey, you know what? Financially, this makes a lot more sense now, so maybe we should do this right now. Mm-hmm. And I think people would be open to listening to that because of the panic that COVID has created. So I think there's all kind of changes that could be coming down that line.
I think the economic impact of this is going to be the biggest issue. There'll be a greater economic issue than probably a health factor issue, and when it's all said and done. And I think at the end of the day, the quote-unquote autonomy 5, most of those schools are going to be fine. Well, the middle guy's going to get hurt. The little guy's going to get hurt. But again, I could be wrong. I don't think there's just going to be this freelance cutting everybody off thing. I just don't see that happening. I think as long as we can play some similar to a football season this year, most people are going to be okay. It will. And at some point in time, the NCAA may have to pony up and help people. Not sure that's going to happen, but they might have to.
I mean, look, to that point, for me, I always follow the money. Proof to me that the NCAA has no interest in doing exactly that is the fact that the small caveat that the seniors can come back for another year, but the schools don't have to give them the same scholarship money, should tell you already the NCAA knows that a lot of their schools can't handle 5 years worth of scholarships to pay, and they're not kicking in the money to pay for those things.
Right.
Why do you say? Where is the conversation come that most schools can't handle 5 years? Because most people do.
No.
Most schools are given 5 years.
Just think about it. The number of fifth-year seniors, like it's not broken up as 20, 20, 20, 20, and 20%. Like the fifth-year senior pool is usually in the 1 or 2% group, right? Now the fifth-year senior pool is the same size as a normal class. The fifth-year senior pool is like 20% now. Am I making sense?
No.
So look, the usual. Look,
I understand what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to say.
The usual 100% is broken up. I'll make it even, where it's the first 4 classes, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, make up about 98% of the student athletes. The fifth-year seniors make up about 2%. Now the fifth-year senior class is like 20% because we just took an entire senior class and brought them back. So
I understand what you're saying. I'm being a little bit smart. Okay, but what I'm saying to you is
now there's 120% that they got to.
Okay, so I'm going to just use numbers here. Okay, so let's say that. Okay, I'll just use my team. Typically, I would have, off the top of my head, I'd have 4 or 5 guys that will be coming back next year that eligibility exhausted. They're in a 5th-year scholarship, right?
Sure.
I still have 4 or 5 guys.
I get that.
Now, it changes the numbers as far as competitors. But as far as the money itself, the money was there already. Okay? So here's what's going to happen now. You're going to see some super teams outdoors next year.
Oh my God.
No doubt.
Y'all don't deal in the realm I deal with.
For 2 things.
With junior college baseball.
Just pray for good weather in Eugene next year because it's going to be on. You're going to see I'm not going to call any names. I won't call nobody out. But boy, you're going to see some super teams next year. I promise you that.
No question about that. They're going to be like there's going to be some assaults on some records for sure next year.
Indeed. No way around that.
No, there's no way around that at all.
Wow.
I look back at some of your Florida teams and I think if there was ever a year where we could have like kept the senior class in and brought the freshman class in and put them on the same team.
I don't even want to think about that. See, those are the kind of things to keep you up at night. I like to get my sleep, so I'm not doing that. I just think that the thing that I try to look at here is that people talk about fairness, and it's never going to be fair between the autonomy 5 and the group of 5 and then the lower levels. Just that's never going to be fair. There's always things I can do here that people can't do other places. But instead of worrying about what I'm doing here, worry about what's going on in your campus. Find a way to make your situation the best it can be, and you'll be fine. But the issue you have is that people are too concerned about what everybody else is doing. I don't care what's going on somebody else's campus. I got to take care of the Gators, and I'm going to take care of the Gators. But at the end of the day, if people will stop worrying about, well, that's unfair that he or she can bring those people back and I can't, well, nothing you can do about it. Just coach your team and get ready because there's going to be super teams next year. Just get ready. I'm excited to watch it myself.
So I got to ask the question because I haven't had a chance to ask you guys that question yet. Within the realm of the COVID situation, I live in California. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
California was the first state to go on lockdown. We do what we want to do out here. Governor Newsom gonna do what he gonna do. So if the public health emergency has not subsided, Gavin Newsom is not about to open up whatever. And so if football season arrives and the state of California is still saying, hey, guess what? There's no gatherings of 250 or more people. We don't care what y'all talking about. Well, we got 4 schools of the Pac-12 in California. So how you play football?
I'm gonna say something you ain't gonna like, and I'm gonna beat mouse to it. SEC starts playing football, no one cares. If the SEC starts
Why are
playing
you trying to
football,
get him started? Why are you?
because
trying
I'm
to
just
get him-
telling the truth, and he knows it.
You know
If
where
the-
this is getting ready to go. You know
if
where it's
the
getting ready.
he starts playing football, all those games are on ESPN. I'm just going to be honest with you. No one cares that the governor of California and the Pac-12 don't want to play. No one cares.
And unless I'm missing something,
Everybody has the same economic interest in it, though.
But
It's
here's
billions of dollars, period.
Exactly, and that's why California's going to play football.
Yeah.
Exactly why they're going to play football.
I mean, remember, California is one of the brokest states in the union.
Well, see, he getting personal now.
Okay.
Seventh largest economy on earth, sir. Seventh largest economy on earth.
I understand that.
And,
You know what?
and here's my
That's
point.
like
Right now,
saying
in
because the football team
California,
spend a lot of money that they make a lot of money. That's look.
but California isn't the problem.
Right.
Right. So like California doesn't have a problem opening back up.
Right.
If some of these East Coast folks need to act right, California's not the issue. You know,
Virginia
he might tell people they can't come over here to the East Coast to play games. But why wouldn't he? Because California, ironically, you guys are actually behaving yourselves pretty well. Proud of you.
Relatively. But no, seriously, like if you can't put people in the stadium to watch the games, now it's no longer a moneymaker, right? Anywhere.
They'll find a way.
Okay, look, see, and I'm serious about this, Chuck. Now, if the people say the people can't come, then why have the game, right?
Exactly, because now it costs twice as much to put it on as it does to have it.
But I'm telling you, if they say you can go to the football games, people are going.
So that's what I'm ultimately asking both of you. What's the line of demarcation? What's going to have to happen? Because let's be real, there is no vaccine coming in 2020. That's unrealistic, medically speaking.
Okay. Unrealistic is right. But realistically, where do we live? The United States of America. When have Americans ever followed the damn rule? Okay? Let's be real here.
Okay.
So the bottom line is that as soon as we have the spike, which is coming, and we start to have the decline, which is happening in a lot of places. Okay. See, we need to stop looking at it as the doom and gloom. I ain't trying to steal your thunder from earlier, but everything's not doom and gloom. Okay. There has been a rapid decline in a lot of places so far. And also the other thing too is like we always report the number of cases, but nobody talks about how severe or unsevere the cases are. So somebody catches it, and I'm aware of a person that had it and they have no symptoms. There's nothing wrong with them. Okay, but they go in the box, but nobody talks about that person that's going to, be fine and going with their life. But we're talking about the people that died. Less than 1% of the people that get this thing die.
Yeah.
So what we need to understand is this: at some point in time, in the real world, this is going to slow down, and people are going to stop pressing the panic button, and they're going back to work, and they're going to play college football. I tell you, it's going to happen next week or the week after. But it's gonna happen, and you'll be at the stadium with them. So it's okay.
But listen, less than 1% still leaves 1 million people dead.
Absolutely.
And as long as those numbers are out there, I don't see how you could justify kids.
Chuck, I'm gonna tell you like this. Then people should have stopped going to football games and stuff a long time ago, because somebody in the United States dies every 12 seconds. And you know me, I'm not that guy. I'm not that fearful guy, and I think we need to take this seriously. We need to develop a vaccine. We need to get it under control. But once it's under control, for me, I need to get back to living my life. And I'm not the guy that's going to be walking around every day afraid to go do things. I don't have a plan to walk around with a mask on my face the rest of my life. I don't. It's just not who I am. And there's a lot of people out there like me. And eventually, because, first of all, I don't really think we want to lock America down for too long. And all of you know why. Okay?
With you on that? I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on that.
Because then you're going to be wanting to get out of California in a minute. They keep us locked down too long. Right?
I just know this. Look, Major League Baseball is having serious talks, and the CDC is involved about moving all of Major League Baseball's operations to the state of Arizona, to the Phoenix area and surroundings. and having a Major League Baseball season in those stadiums that exist there without fans. So I'm telling you, look, you know why? Because they can then sell all of those games on television, and they will recoup a great deal of the money that's not being made from concessions. So what I'm telling you is, one way, shape, or form, I completely agree with my man Lucius. Football's going to get played in this fall, even before they can actually go into stadiums. If they end up playing without stadiums and they jack up the price to ESPN pays more money and there's more games on television, so be it. But money's going to be made and recouped one way, shape, or form.
And that's my question, right? Like that's the basis of my question, because I can totally envision a scenario where the NFL owners and the NFLPA say, you know what? We're a private corporation. We want our money. We together, the owners and the players association, we're going to decide, like, you know what? Health risks aside, we're going to go play football and get this money. That's different than making people's kids play for free. That's not professional sports. And I think the hot water.
Okay, so you say making people's kids pay for free.
Play for free.
So we need to start that conversation tonight?
No.
That's a whole different conversation, because they're not paying for free. So we need to stop that. They're not playing for free. The other thing is this. Okay, they're not. But here's the other thing that you need to understand. There's a whole bunch of parents out there that envision a whole bunch of their kids playing in the NFL and the NBA. Okay. They're going to let them play.
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, look, if Major League Baseball plays, then basketball's going to play, and the NFL plays, college sports going to get played.
And isn't most of the money from football, from football and all the other sports from television anyway?
Absolutely.
Almost all of it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you play a football game and the stadium's empty, they still make a lot of money, right?
Yep.
So you think we might play football now? Yeah.
I think it's hard.
Look,
man.
Think about it.
I want them to play.
Look,
You better want them to play.
I want them to play.
Because I know I want them to play.
Football coach quarantine their kids in a hotel, and they sequester their kids in a hotel every weekend during the regular situation, right? So I could easily see them saying, okay, we're going to clean such and such a hotel, and we're going to take over this hotel. This is where all the football players live for the first semester. They live here. They take all the classes online. They go to practice. They go play. They now live in their own little bubble, but we play and we make money.
So the big key here is getting it to be safe to be back on campus.
Yep.
That's the key.
And to Chris's example, that's where I get painted with the doomsday, right? Because in that exact example, somebody's kid, a bunch of football players got asthma, for example. Somebody's kid quarantined in the hotel so we can go get this TV money for football, catches it, dies. Now what? It's likely to happen. It's a thing that is likely to happen.
Isn't it just as likely to happen if he's not playing football?
Yes, but then absolutely. But then there's no culpability to the university.
But Chuck, even when there has been culpability, like look, there was a female basketball player at Cal that died from MRSA, right?
Okay.
There's a lawsuit that happens. Her and her family got paid, but they didn't stop basketball season. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying, as long as the actual numbers are that more people die from the flu than from COVID-19, as long as I get it, but as long as those numbers are still going to get trotted out, it's not that it's going to go away. But I'm just telling you, they're going to figure out the line of what mitigated risk is going to keep moving.
You're too smart to make that bad analogy.
Why is that a bad analogy?
I said, why is it a bad analogy?
Because they're not remotely connected to each other. You could pick anything. You could say something like more people die from smoking. Smoking's a choice. This isn't a choice. This is something that's
why is it a bad analogy?
Because the flu numbers, the comparative to something that we've been dealing with for a long time, that we have that we have herd immunity to, that there's a vaccine for, that all those things. None of that stuff exists here. And you don't know where this thing is going. And it's spreading way faster than that. And the mortality rate is 10 times what the flu is. It just hasn't existed long enough. And all the numbers that we see on TV, they may be scary to people. Other people
Wait, what do you mean it's
but
10
those
times?
numbers are muted because we're not
10 times?
testing. Those numbers
10
are
times
not real. The numbers are tenfold worse than that.
How do we know that?
Common sense? Science?
No.
Mouse, if 1% of the population is actually being tested,
hold on.
we don't. You can't possibly believe.
See, I'm not going to allow you to, first of all, make it sound like, okay, it's not common sense. Anything's common sense. Okay, now you've got some actual facts. I'm gonna ride with you, brother.
Okay, here's an actual fact. Here's an actual fact.
But no, hold on a second. I let you talk. Let me finish.
Go ahead. Okay,
you can't come at me with this. It's common sense that the numbers aren't real. That's not common sense. Okay. Because maybe the numbers are real. Maybe they aren't real. But it's not common sense that the numbers are way greater than what the people say they are. It's not. That's not common sense.
We are not remotely testing for this disease at any kind of scalable rate that we should. That's a fact.
That has nothing to do with what you said.
Yes, it does. Because the only numbers that we see, the numbers that we see are the reported numbers. We know how many people have been tested and tested positive. That's what we know.
Right.
But there are multi-millions of people who have not been tested. There's people right now, if I felt sick, I can't just go outside and get a test. I can't just go find out. I can't do that. You can't do that where you live. He can't do that where you live.
I can.
Well, maybe you got enough dollars to get that done, but I know I can't.
Hey, don't put that in my neighborhood, bro. If I feel like I got symptoms, I can pick up the phone. I can be tested tomorrow morning.
Well, you have a very unique situation. The majority of the country doesn't have that.
I get that.
So when we know for a verifiable fact that we are not doing these tests at the scale that is remotely relative to the population that we have, we know intrinsically that the numbers are muted. It's just math.
Okay, see, you're changing your conversation because the numbers are. You said that the numbers are muted or off, yeah, but they can't be intrinsically bigger because that's an opinion of yours. That's not a fact. Because
every place that has ramped up testing, every place that has ramped up testing, the curve goes straight up in the air.
Well, of course they get it because you're testing them. Of course they're going to go up. Okay, look, we understand that there's more people out there that have it that we don't know about. Yes, but that doesn't mean the whole daggone world has the damn thing.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's what you basically what you're saying. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let you ride with that. Because if you want to believe that we're going to have these issues, then we'll have to wait and see. You know, I'm a proponent of, things are getting better, and I'm also a proponent of the fact that a lot of people that get it don't have major issues. There's a lot of people that have had it and have survived. We lost some people to it, and that's sad. It really is.
That's also a fact. That's 80%.
But
80% are good. 80% are good.
But the majority of the people that get this, even moving forward, are going to survive.
That's a fact. That's a medical fact. I don't dispute that.
So that's what I'm gonna ride with, and that's why we're gonna play football again someday.
Well, this is what it's going to be. You're going to hear high heels coming down the hallway. Olivia Pope's going to be coming around with that big old bag, and she's going to be doing this. Play football, play football, play football. Here's your money. Until Scandal comes back, we don't know what's going on. So anyhow, this has been fun. Let's do this again. Yeah, till next time, more topics to come. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Gentlemen.